Hey everyone, how's it going? Juan Dhas here, and this week I wanted to follow up on last week's lesson, which was kind of a primer on how to go about practicing melodic minor. But this week I wanted to tackle actual harmonic applications, where you can start using melodic minor in a functional context. And the reason I say this is I think sometimes as guitar players we tend to get caught up in playing a little too literally with the chord scale relationship and only practicing melodic minor over certain chord types, which is all well and good and works fantastic for non-functional harmony. However, I've found, at least in my own journey so far as a musician and an improviser, that when it comes to using melodic minor, I had the most progress when I immediately started applying it in musical contexts, and specifically functional contexts. And I found that I was able to access the scale a little more easily. So I wanted to share a couple of the more useful applications for melodic minor, ones that will fit in the large majority of contexts, popular music, contemporary music, and not just jazz standards. So a quick disclaimer, yes, there will be some sounds that I won't cover, like Lydian sharp 5. That's because I feel they're very specific, and they're kind of self-explanatory in a way. Lydian augmented will work over a major 7 sharp 5 chord, and major 7 sharp 5, using this as an example, there aren't too many options to play for that, play over that. So those can be figured out. The other ones, however, are a little more broad, and I wanted to just do a bit more of a deep dive into those. So let's dive right in. I'm going to be focusing on specifically melodic minor, Lydian flat 7, and altered. So with melodic minor, there are two great options you can use. The first of which is tonic minor or 1 minor. So let's say you're in a minor key, and we're going to take G minor for this. You have either a minor triad, a minor 6 chord, a minor major 7 chord. Those are great options to use melodic minor over. Right? Now, same thing can apply to minor 6 chords, and you'll see this a lot in standards. Autumn Leaves, the ending for the A section, is usually either a minor 6 chord or a minor triad, and that's a great way to get that E natural, or the actual 6, 13 if you want to look at it that way. So that's a beautiful sound to use. Sometimes I'll even use it on minor 7 chords. However, I will say be very careful with this, because otherwise you'll have a little bit of a clash between the 7s. I prefer to use the major 7 as kind of like a passing tone. Right? Just a very quick passing tone to get to the root. But it's a useful sound to have in your arsenal. Another great use for melodic minor is playing in major keys, and it was kind of loosely implied in the intro I played, even though the harmonic context was a little different. When you have 4 minor to 1. So let's say if we're in C major and we have a 4 minor chord, which would be F minor, and we have this resolution back to 1. It's a really common use of modal interchange. And what we can do is visualize playing melodic minor from the 4 chord, or the root of the 4 chord. So this would mean if we're playing an F minor, we can play F melodic minor. And that provides a really beautiful resolution to the 1 major. Now, why does this work? If you actually look at the scale content between F melodic minor and C major, you'll see a lot of common tones. Actually, pretty much every note is a common tone except for that A flat. So it gives you a very nice hint of color and helps you hit that 4 minor change really well. And if you can nail the resolution, it's a nice way to create tension and resolution, which is really what I think the strength of the melodic minor scale is it's a great tool or device to create tension to some degree or another, and then resolve it once you arrive at your resolution point. Now so that's kind of it for melodic minor as far as the parent scale. And I'm going to be making references to the parent scale throughout this video. But now we get into Lydian dominant or Lydian flat 7 and altered, which will be your go-to melodic minor sounds over dominant chords. And dominant chords working in different ways. So I'm going to split this up into a couple of categories. We have dominant chords that don't function as expected. They function more as modal interchange chords. And dominant chords that resolve via half step. Usually this will be your tritone substitution. I'll loosely get into the theory of that in a bit. And dominant chords that resolve via a fifth, as expected. So the intro I did for the lesson was based off of a monk tune called Monk's Dream. And the progression for that is, I took the A section and just kind of played it on loop. Or at least the main bulk of the A section. And it's usually C major to B flat 7. This is a great instance of flat 7/7, something that's really common in contemporary music in general. It's a great modal interchange chord. And it's actually also known more commonly as the backdoor dominant. So we can use Lydian flat 7 on most modal, on specifically flat 7/7 and 4/7. So if I were to play F7, kind of like a blues. That's an interesting color you can employ on the 4 chord of a blues. And as I was saying earlier, flat 7/7, it's a great option. To use on that backdoor dominant. Just, again, much like what I said before, they share a lot of common tones with the home key. So be aware of that. Lydian flat 7's other main use is for what we call tritone substitutions. Now, tritone substitutions, just to loosely get into the theory of it, let's say they're kind of reharmonization tools for 5-to-1 resolutions. So let's say, again, we're in the key of C major. We have 5 or G7 to 1. We can replace that G7 by taking a dominant or building a dominant chord a tritone away from the root of the 5, which will be D flat. Now this works, just to get into a little bit of the theory, it works because they both share the same tritone within the chord. But all you need to know right now is just this is how we get to the tritone sub. And then that resolves via a half step to a diatonic chord, or a chord that's in the key. Now, Lydian flat 7 is kind of the go-to chord for that sound and gives you all of your upper extensions. So, it's a beautiful sound to employ in that context. So, remember the guidelines to look for a tritone sub. Now we get into using it on the 5 chord. And I think this is arguably one of the most important uses for melodic minor, period. And it's using the altered scale. A lot of people do kind of get hung up on using the altered. And by the way, I forgot to mention this with Lydian flat 7. What I like to do is instead of just visualize a position for Lydian flat 7, because I find that, again, we as guitar players get locked into position-based playing a lot, I like to think of the parent scale. So if I'm playing, let's say in the context of Monk's Dream, I'm playing B flat, Lydian flat 7, I think of the parent scale instead. This would come from F melodic minor, because Lydian flat 7 is the 4th degree. So F melodic minor, and that way I open up the entire fretboard. However, that said, I am very aware, or try to be as aware as possible, of where my chord tones lie for the chord. So bear that in mind as I explain altered, which kind of goes with the same process. So this is great whenever you have 5-to-1 resolutions. Even when you have, let's say, secondary dominance, I can play altered. Shoot. There it is. Altered again. Took me a little while to get that, but hey, there we go. So you can use it whenever there's a 5-to-1 resolution, so to speak. Not literally 5-to-1, as in it has to be the 5th degree down to the 1, but a dominant chord that's resolving via a 5th to its expected resolution, or really to any point of resolution. And it's a great way to bring out all of the altered tensions. So flat 9, sharp 9, if we visualize dominant chord. Flat 9, sharp 9, flat 5, flat 13, and flat 7. So this is actually a great thing to use on a 2-5-1. It's a nice color to use, and again, just to simplify visualization, rather than think of a position, like, okay, we're going to play G altered, I try think of A flat melodic minor. And that gives me a lot more freedom across the fretboard. Now, just to close up with this little lesson on application, I want to talk a bit about phrasing. Phrasing with melodic minor, and I loosely alluded to this in the lesson from last week, but when it comes to phrasing with melodic minor, you don't have to play the scale ascending or descending. Try experiment with creating actual melodies, if I'm using the example of Monk's Dream again, right? Sure, there may be scalar motion or scalar ideas, but I'm not thinking of just running a scale up and down. Or I'll try really highlight some of the colors within the scale. Really try making strong melodic choices. One thing I would also recommend is, because, and this is just kind of a little tidbit of information for melodic minor, the scale is infinitely substitutable within itself. So try taking different triads from the scale and playing them in the context of the chord. So I can play, let's say over B flat, I can play maybe C major, and maybe add some other color notes. Right? So when you hear that against that B flat chord, you get a nice color there. I can also try playing maybe an F minor triad on top of the B flat 7. With some color tones. Maybe even take some of the 7th chords and play them against that. I can take F minor major 7. And they create really strong ideas. And this is the thing with tension resolution. When you're managing tension, try create patterns that the ear can easily latch onto, namely triads or 7th chords. It actually gives your tension playing a lot more drive and forward momentum. Now these are just loose ideas, and maybe I think at some point down the line I'll do a video, maybe next week or the week after, do a video on different techniques you can employ when playing with melodic minor, or rather playing with any scale, really, to get a little more color, using triads, using 7th chords, and superimpositions. But I wanted to cover the harmonic applications first and make sure, or some useful harmonic applications first, to make sure that you guys have that to work with in your own playing and in your own practice sessions. So I hope this lesson was really useful for you guys. As always, if you enjoyed the lesson, please do like, comment, subscribe. It really helps me out a ton. And I'll see you in the next video.